And we are live.
Yay!
Good morning, everyone. Good morning.
Excellent.
We're
going to try to share it really fast.
Hi, everyone. We're all here. We have Elizabeth and Shevonne and myself. So we're so excited to have Shevonne with us.
Excited to be here.
The three of us back together.
Yes, it's so exciting to have the whole team here. And there we go. I'm going to hit this.
We are talking about nursing in public and all the fun stuff that comes along with it. Oh, are we starting watch party?
Yeah. There we go. Okay, great. Sorry, thank you for sitting tight with us. I was adding it to my feed, so hopefully some of my folks will take a peek and join on in. And Shevonne, were you doing the same thing?
I was, yeah.
Excellent. All right.
Eating my
breakfast. Well, hello everyone. Thanks for hanging in there. Got settled. All right. Oh, look at that. We've got folks watching. Hi, everyone. All right. So we can just jump right in. So today's topic, we are exploring all the aspects about nursing in public, expressing milk in public, feeding babies milk in public, and all the different wonderful ways that we do that. Well, let's introduce ourselves again really quickly. Just hopefully we have many people watching. And so a quick overview. So we are the Open Arms Lactation Support Peer Counselors. So we are 3 different folks from different communities, and we are all from the organizations. We do in-home and lactation lounges, so in-home support and lactation lounges. And yeah, so I'm Elizabeth. I represent our American Indian Alaska Native focus community. I'm Anishinaabe, Little Traverse Bay Band Odawa descendant, and had a tough go nursing my first baby and switched from being a professional chef to exploring lactation. And here we are. That was 7 years ago.
We're glad you're here.
Ooh, I'm glad to be here.
I'm Shevonne, and I am a Black and African American lactation counselor or peer counselor. I have 3 kids of my own that I breastfed for a total of over 5 years. My last I breastfed for 3.5 years, which was quite the journey. And I'm really excited to be here. Hi, everyone. I'm Mary, and I am the Lactation Peer Counselor for the Pacific Islander community. I am Filipino, and I have 3 daughters. Oldest are twins that breastfed. Not as long as I wanted to, but like around little over 6 months, 6 to 9 months, and that was 17 years ago. So if I'm trying real hard to remember as because I am. Yeah, I'm excited to be here. I'm excited we're all here, and nursing in public. I stayed home, so I didn't in public, but I always like and I used to be other parents nursing in public, and I love that I'm seeing it now. It's becoming normalized and accepted. Definitely. And I'm gonna be munching my breakfast. Matcha chocolate covered macadamias. That sounds delicious. I've got my breakfast of champions here. The coffee.
I just caffeinate.
Yeah.
Yeah, so as far as nursing in public, I'll say that, so when I had my first kiddo 7 years ago, that was, I was very nervous about it. I had every plan to exclusively breastfeed, and I had some weird hangups about it though. But I did the process to work. I had no concern about that. But the idea of, well, I shared before, a couple weird hangups. I thought, well, maybe 6 months, and being in public is scary and weird and maybe like not okay. In fact, I often share the story about my husband, who is now a huge supporter and champion of folks, you know, expressing their milk, feeding their babies, doing anything, anywhere. But we were in our childbirth ed class, and we were talking about breastfeeding, and I was already like, I don't know, a year, that sounds like a really long time. And he's like, and I mean, like, everywhere? In public? Can't you just pump first and then give the baby a bottle out in public? So we went into it with some weird ideas and some stuff. And after when we were coming home from the hospital, my experience was that I felt really uncomfortable. So the first time we had a big drive. We gave over a Swedish first hill in Seattle, and then had to take a ferry boat and get all the way back to Kitsap County afterwards. So we were like 3 or 4 days because we'd had some challenges. Everything was like leaky and very uncomfortable. I wasn't very good at it yet. And of course she started crying in the car on the boat. And I was like, oh no, what am I supposed to do? And so I put swab on all the windows, like put them over the windows and rolled up so that I had a little box and put one over the windshield. And, you know, then I pulled my way through it, and it was very stressful. And in that moment, I was like, oh boy, how am I going to do this? You know, at that point, my goal was 6 months.
Right.
I was like, how am I going to have any sort of life and nurse this baby? And that's something I think about a lot, because I think that sometimes that is one of those challenges or barriers that people face when they are, you know, thinking about feeding their milk to their baby for any amount of time, because it can feel like this big, like, how this is, so when we are normalizing and saying like, yes, it's okay to feed your baby in public, we're really helping to create an environment where, you know, something's not normal till it's normal. So we just keep on doing it. And my husband ended up becoming a really big helper, protector, champion, and I don't think I could have made the shift without him and some other plague friends. So the first time we went out, we had a cardiologist appointment, and I took my sweet baby and a big box pillow and one of those butter covers, and took her to the bathroom, got situated, her latched on, put a blanket over her, had her in the bobby pillow, and walked through a restaurant, because God forbid I was latching a baby in public. I was so nervous about it. And then like a week later, we were taking a walk, and she got hungry, and she starts doing the hungry cry, and I'm freaking out because I have this baby who's very clearly hungry. I'm at least 10 minutes away from the house. We're sitting down at a cafe by the water, and I'm like, what do I do? And my husband, he's like, you feed the baby. Mister, can't you pump and do a bottle? But he's like, just feed the baby. And so, and I was so, you know, I don't know, I felt like, what's going to happen? Is the world to just explode? I don't know. Are people going to say something weird and terrible? Are they, you know? And I was dealing with some postpartum anxiety, and so things were hard. And then I pulled my shirt down and nursed my baby, and everything's fine. And I was like, wait, huh? I think that was really the first time I was like, oh, it can be fine. This is doable if I can just do stuff. And I think that was a big light bulb moment for me. That, and then being in a play group with friends. And again, I felt really, it was part of anxiety. I was having a hard time with everything. It felt really big, really hard and straight. And we were also using an SMS point. So I have a tube that I have to attach to my nipple with a little bottle of donor milk or pumped milk. And dealing with that, let alone at home, let alone in public, was hard enough. So I didn't go out much, and that didn't help my state of mind at all. And so I had some wonderful friends. I was invited by a neighbor to join this group of people who would they all had babies within a year of each other. And I don't know, we met at a park, which is funny because these were all under a year-old babies. So they couldn't use the park, but we would just sit on blankets and get to talk to other people, which I highly recommend in non-COVID times.
Yeah.
And again, that panic. Oh my gosh, what do I do? And I've got this tube, and I was thinking about, well, I could just finger feed her with it, but then what am I going to do about the milk needs to come out? I'm going to get engorged, and I'm working so hard on my milk supply. I don't want to risk it. And I watched this other friend, and just matter of fact, she pulls up a little washcloth and she puts it on one side of her bra, unlatches the other side, just natural as can be, and pops their baby on. She's in there still topless, and I was like, huh. And another light bulb. It's okay. It's okay. And and also it was one of those beautiful moments of recognizing that the journey is very different for everyone. So she was dealing with a really chronic oversupply. So she had an entire pretty thick washcloth and put it in the other side of her bra. Meanwhile, I'm taping a little tube to my breast and feeding my baby that way. But it was just sitting in that group with those with these people, and we were all doing our things our own way, and following our own path and getting our babies fed it was good medicine, and it was really beautiful. I feel like I also hope there was people walking by who took a minute to look and say huh, look at all those people just feeding their babies.
It's beautiful.
Which is really
sorry.
Go ahead, Mary.
Oh, it's beautiful when you have when you can find community. Just that support, and then those tips and the aha moment, and then your world, you're like, oh my gosh, they can do things a little more.
And what an empowering moment.
Yes.
Yeah. So Elizabeth, did you find that there was a difference between public nursing with firstborn and public nursing with your second?
Yeah. So I ended up, after that, my goal was 6 months. I ended up being almost just about 2 years. And so we made it about the SNS. I was dealing better with as part of mood disruptions. We got very comfortable nursing wherever. So I, ultimately it was easy peasy, smooth sailing. I stopped using the cover about a month into, maybe 2 months into feeding her, because then she got really wiggly too. They do and so then by the time she was a toddler, she milk, more milk, and whatever. You just can't. I couldn't even be bothered to care. And so with my second kiddo, I mean, at that point, I've been now working in lactation for 5 years. I have literally zero care about what anyone thinks about it anymore. It didn't even faze me. I wouldn't even think about it to nurse that baby anywhere, anytime, walking down the street, whatever. You know, occasionally, depending if I was feeling, you know, maybe like I didn't want to have my entire boob hanging out, throw a washcloth over the top, or like a burp cloth just over the top of my breast if I wasn't wearing a nursing top. So like if I was wearing a top like this, just pull it down and pop a washcloth on top of the baby's head is over the nipple. So I didn't have any concerns or cares nursing him in public, and I also never had any bad experience with anyone. I know that's something sometimes people think about, like, people are going to be mean. I can't speak for anyone else. I've never had anyone I have also nursed about 4 years total, and in 4 years of nursing babies, never had anyone say anything rude or bad or be combative. But I was, and so I've never had a negative experience. But for him, since I was already very comfortable nursing in public, I made a goal, because I felt like it's really important that we're nursing in public, and that didn't feel hard anymore. So I really wanted to work on pumping in public, because I never got over that with my first. But I worked for a durable medical supplier where we would help folks get their breast pumps through insurance, and I did that for a long time. And talking with folks, especially with exclusive pumpers, and so folks who aren't, either are working and aren't with their baby, or are exclusively pumping by choice or for medical reasons or latching reasons. It's not as, I feel like there's not as much public discussion about it. And a lot of times people would be really nervous and feel like, well, of course I can nurse a baby in public, but what about pumping? And I had, again, felt the same way. I pumped in a lot of bathrooms. I commuted by boat for a long time, so I was in the family bathroom. Now also feel bad in the bathroom for the whole of the boat. Right, sorry, everyone who needed to use that. And so I was like, okay, if I'm out and about, I'm gonna do it. And also just want to note for folks that you are protected when you express your milk in public, whether you're feeding a baby directly at the breast or you're using a pump. You are protected by law, so you can, if that helps, to use that in your brain to know that you are absolutely protected. No one can try to threaten you or intimidate you or say that you need to leave. You do not. You can pump or nurse your baby anywhere you are.
And that includes manual expressing?
Yes, absolutely. And if you don't have your breast pump, you get stranded away from your baby, or just you get randomly engorged, like you can do that. And so that was, I have all these pictures of me pumping, but I think the funniest and most the journey really was towards the end of my nursing journey with my second baby. I was going to a training in Seattle, and I lived in Kitsap. And I missed a boat. I don't know what happened. I was gone for a really long time. I hadn't brought my breast pump. I thought it was going to be fine. And I was driving back to the boat, and my breast hurt and really engorged, and that's bad. It's not, you're setting yourself up for mastitis, for ducts. I wasn't worried about my milk supply. If you are in a stage with your baby where you are need to be active of your milk supply, every time you feel that milk stasis, when your milk is stuck and is not moving and has not moved, you're telling your body to make less milk. So especially if baby's under a year and you're still exclusively providing their main nutrition, it's really important to keep your milk moving on a regular basis. But even if you're not worried about milk supply, engorgement, mastitis, plug ducts, huge deal. So I was like, great. I don't have a breast pump. I don't have a baby. I've been gone for way too long. What am I going to do? And 7 years apart from Elizabeth, who covered up every window to nurse a baby. I sat in the front seat of my car and I pulled out a water cup I had been using, and I unfortunately wasn't able to keep the milk because I didn't have a clean vessel. But I just sat in the front seat and like hand expressed, and I got 3 or 4 ounces and such relief. And I just sat in the front of my car and hand expressed, and it was fine. Once again, no pit opened up under me to swallow me into the earth. No one said anything. Not even a sideways look. So there's something to be said for the Seattle folks keeping to themselves.
Seattle freeze.
Seattle freeze. They're like, I don't know what you're doing. So yeah, and then we can show some pictures. So like I said, I did feel a little awkward at first, pumping on the go. And I made sure I got a little breast pump that was very easy to travel with. And then one of the things I did to help myself feel better, I just took goofy photos. So, like anything, sometimes you just gotta practice, and whatever it takes, setting yourself up to feel comfortable. And if you're not comfortable, sometimes being goofy is helpful. I would also, if I didn't feel like, if I just was feeling more sensitive, sometimes I'd work on my, don't F with me face. Just sit there kind of, what you gonna do? Like I said, I never had anyone. It's just various different ways of self, kind of getting myself at ease. So once I felt comfortable nursing in public, and then I was still kind of actively conquering pumping in public, it's just like anything. Doing anything that's new, be a little bit overwhelming. And then by the end of it, like I said, just boob out, hand expressing in my front seat, no big deal. So it's a journey. That's been a lot of me talking. I'd love to hear from our other. Shevonne was sharing a little bit yesterday. So Shevonne,
Sure. Yeah, I love your stories though, Elizabeth. They're reminders of. They make me think of my own journey that I had, and also just reminders of how powerful we actually are at lactating people. And so thank you for sharing all of your stories with us. So I'm trying to think. I definitely don't have as many stories as Elizabeth does, mainly because I nursed so long ago. My youngest is 13. And so my last time nursing was about 10 years ago. But I definitely remember the difference between nursing my first and nursing my last. With my firstborn, I was 18 years old. I had never seen anybody breastfeed or chest feed before. So the whole concept of nursing my child from my body was really foreign to me. But I knew it was something that I wanted to do. And I was hell-bent on making sure that whenever my baby was hungry, he was getting fed. Which meant that, and as an 18-year-old, I went to the mall or I went to the park or wherever, and my baby was always with me. And so initially it was really scary. I'd have my baby out and I'd find like a dressing room, and I'd camp out in the dressing room and nurse in there because I was afraid of what people would think. I lived in Tacoma at the time, and am I still here?
We can hear you.
We can hear you. Your face is on.
I don't know what happened. I can keep talking, or I can log out and pop back in.
I think let's have you keep talking so you don't interrupt your things to lose you completely.
Okay. So I lived near the base where some folks were a little bit more conservative and reserved. And so I was just really nervous about possibly exposing myself, which is how I viewed it at the time. And so, of course, hiding in the dressing rooms, which thankfully nobody bothered me. They were like, go ahead, take as much time as you need, which I really appreciated. And then I worked my way out to like nursing on a bench and having like this whole blanket covering me and the baby, which, you know, in the middle of summer can be really hot and uncomfortable. And, you know, babies get to a place where they start pulling the blanket down. And then I was like scrambling to cover myself back up and cover baby back up. And it was just a lot. So, you know, fast forward a couple of months, I'm back at work. My child's in, you know, daycare, and he would not take the bottle. So I would pump and bring all this good, you know, beautiful milk to the daycare with him, and he would take about 4 ounces in a 12-hour period, which means I would have to reverse nurse. And so from the time I picked him up until basically the time I dropped him back off the next day, I would be nursing him. And at the time I was on the bus, taking public transportation. And so I would put him in my ring sling and nurse him the entire bus ride home, the walk from the bus stop to our house. And so I was nursing in public without a cover, essentially. But my sling was a really great way for me to maintain my modesty without restricting my ability to nurse my baby, to see him and make eye contact with him. As you see, Elizabeth has her beautiful, beautiful sling. Mine was definitely not that pretty. But again, this was in the year 2000. Things just weren't as cute for parents back then.
Real, there was not a lot. And then
no. And so, yeah, so I would carry actually, you know, when he was still an infant, I would have him laying down, and this way I could still, exactly, just like that. And I would maintain eye contact while you can use yes, that's perfect, Elizabeth. I actually didn't do that.
No, my
No.
boobs got so big while I was nursing that it would be like, I felt like my boob was up here in my chin. And so sometimes I would take the tail and not be on baby's face, but like that, you know, so it's covering the top part. But I mean, you can, even just like this, you can see there's not a lot being exposed. I didn't mean to interrupt, Shevonne. I figured I would just kind of be like a demo over here.
I love it. No, I didn't do that is because my the tail of my ring sling wasn't that luscious. It was just like it was very much like a paddle almost. It wasn't soft and covering. But I would use burp cloths to cover it because my breasts were also very large while nursing. And so I would use burp cloths to cover the top of my breast, or you know, I would wear 2 shirts. So I'd have like an undershirt camisole that I would pull down, and then I'd have my top shirt that I'd pull up. And so that, again, allowed me with the sling to maintain that modesty. Fast forward, by the time I had my youngest son, my 13-year-old, I had no cares in the world about anything that had to do with my body. My body, at that point, I felt like my body was no longer mine. It belonged to my children. And and whatever they needed in that moment, I was going to make sure that they had. So I'd be at the playground nursing him in the carrier. When he got older and was a toddler, and he'd come over and demand Mimi, which is what he called it, and pulling at my shirt, I just, you know, whip out my boob, and he'd have his little snack, and then he'd run off, leaving me fully exposed. And I put it away, and nobody said anything. Nobody bothered me. And if anything, people would, and maybe it's the community that I lived in at the time, but people would celebrate that I was nursing my baby and nourishing my baby from, you know, from my body the way it should, or the way my body was designed to, right? So yeah, that's my little story. I want to join you guys again in video. So I'm going to actually pop out and pop back in.
Yeah, that sounds great. I just wanted to hear. I wanted to make sure you didn't get interrupted in your beautiful story. I love hearing. I mean, same as you said. I love hearing other people's stories too. And if there are folks, I think it looks like there's a fair amount of people watching. I see Tasha wave. Hi, Tasha. And I think Rachel watching. Yay, Shevonne, you're back.
Okay.
So I'd love if we, if you have one watching who wants to type in the comments any of your, experiences or stories or good tips. I love those tips, Shevonne, that you had about, all the different ways. Because, I mean, it's nice to have strategies, too, if you are having any of those feelings of being uncomfortable. I love that, the more we do this, the more it feels normal to other folks. Definitely by the time I was nursing my second, my goal, this is maybe sound weird, but a lot of times folks are like, oh, well, no one's feeding babies for attention, which is true, like not sexual attention. But I will say that I very purposely didn't hide and didn't tuck away while I was nursing my second baby, because I figured I felt comfortable and I was happy and I was very at ease nursing him or pumping for him. And I think that would have done I knew it did a world of good for me when I was nervous to see other people doing that. So I wouldn't say that I was doing it for attention so much as to it was very intentional, in public.
Almost like a protest.
Yeah, I love a good protest.
The intention, right?
Yes, yeah, because I thought, what a great thing for everyone, the way we see it, and it's like no one should be feeling. We shouldn't be creating an atmosphere where folks feel uncomfortable for feeding their babies in any way, and that goes for every single way of feeding a baby. We should, we need to all be supporting each other in all of the different ways, whether it's nursing, pumping, bottle feeding, SNS, all of the things.
Yeah, and
absolutely.
People internalize their shame. People have had, and it doesn't sound like you guys have had negative experiences with other people, which is great. But I know that there are stories out there, but I think it's more the other people's shame that they're projecting onto you. It has nothing to do with you. It's everything to do with them. And who are they to you, So yeah, make a protest. And
I just remembered, I did have one. It wasn't like a shaming thing, but it was like a weird moment that I do think about sometimes, because I was just getting comfortable being more public, but I was still very modest, but not hiding. And I was at a friend's sister's daughter's birthday, very convoluted. But basically, I was at a children's birthday party with a lot of adults and a lot of children. And I was getting that kind of nervous hit in my stomach. Okay, I gotta feed her, but she was probably 3 months old. And we had gotten used to doing it in public. But sometimes it feels, I don't know, maybe I'm the only one. Sometimes I felt a little bit more at ease around strangers than around people I knew. So I was at this, party people I kind of knew, but not super well. And I didn't know how it was going to go over. So I was in a chair, I was getting comfy, and this little kid came up. He was probably 5, and he's like, "What are you doing?" And I said, "Oh, I'm getting ready to feed the baby." And his mom kind of came over and was like, "Oh, don't bother them. That's private." And I was like, "Not really. It's okay." And so that was one of those funny moments where I also was like, oh yeah, this is how we also teach our kids, right? So my 7-year-old, I have to remind her that not everybody nurses a baby at their breast. She'll be like, why isn't your boob in that kid's mouth? Why is that baby crying? she will not be a person who ever has a hard time or gives someone a hard time. So not only is it important that we are doing it, but also we're setting a really great example for our children to just kind of lay the foundation that we're just, this is fine. You know, this is great.
And all types of
I feel like I had some
babies.
sort of.
Gotta love the lags.
Sorry, go on.
Saying that all types of feeding should be accepted and welcomed without judgment and without comment, unless the comment is "Good job feeding your baby, parent." You know, like anything beyond that, or "Can I get you some water?" or you know, "What can I do to support you in this moment?" If you're not doing that, keep it to yourself. You know. Yesterday you were sharing that you had a situation. It was kind of like the reverse of you weren't nursing in public, but you were feeding in public, and somebody came up to you. You know, it's a little bit different than what we're talking about today, but I also thought it was interesting, just, you know, kind of like the inverse of what we're talking about, but also talking about the inclusion and full spectrum of feeding in public.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, yeah, I'm happy to share that. And it was a very foundational experience for me in how I come to the work that I do, and the compassion and you know, how I recognize that everyone is on their own journey, and you know, there is no one right thing for everyone. So I shared, you know, my daughter, I had to use, I pumped, I used an SNS, I used donor milk, I used formula, I nursed her at breast, like we did everything. And so, but I was having a hard time with it again. You know, I was really battling some mood disruptions, and just, we were having a hard time. We had a hard birth. We had a hard time initiating breastfeeding. She had some medical challenges. Like, it was hard. So I was really walking around a lot of times very emotional. And I had just finished wrestling with the whole SNS in public. We were out for one of our first outings. It was just the two of us. My husband was working. I felt very overwhelmed, but I was so proud of myself because I had done it. You know, I had used the SNS, I had nursed her, but she still needed a bottle. That was our journey at that point, was we would nurse using the SNS. Sometimes I would try then nursing her without the SNS and see how that was, and then she usually was still hungry again, and I would finish her off with a bottle. And that worked for us. So I was sitting there and I was giving her a bottle, and I was feeling like so accomplished. You know, like, all right, we did this. We made it out of the house, which is, I mean, that's number one, a huge accomplishment. And then I nursed her and I used an SNS, and she was eating a bottle, which sometimes she wouldn't. So I was like, I'm on top of the world. This is great. And this very, you know, kindly woman came up, and, you know, she was like older, and she starts talking to me, and I felt a little funny about that, but it was okay. And she's like, oh, what a beautiful baby. And I'm, oh, thank you. I'm here. And then she goes, but why are you nursing that sweet baby? Don't you know it's so much better for her? And I just like instantly burst into tears. And I said, I was crying, and I was like, I'm trying so hard and I can't. And she just like backed away and walked off. And in that moment, I just was like, well, that's a load of beans, and no one should ever make someone feel like that, you know, for anything in the way that we care of our babies. Every single person out there who is caring for a baby, you are the expert, and you know what is best for them, and you are doing exactly the right things for yourself in your journey and your baby. And so that really became a very pivotal moment for me to recognize that it's not my place ever to make a, you know, judgmental or even I really try not to offer unsolicited advice because a lot of times it hits as a criticism and it's unnecessary.
Thank you. I think that it's, I don't know, when I was nursing, it was really helpful to hear other people's stories and experiences on feeding their children and interactions that they had with other folks, to know that I wasn't alone in those moments. So I really appreciate you sharing that with all of us. And also, like, with the understanding that none of us really had any, as far as breastfeeding goes, like none of us really had any negative interactions with folks in public. For the most part, people did talk to themselves, and I had a few looks, like one look, and I'd do what Elizabeth did, and I'd either give them a look back, like don't come over here, you know, or it would just encourage me and kind of motivate me to do it more, to nurse in public more, without covers, without, you know, modesty. And it really was like false modesty that other people, I felt like, was pressured from other people. You know, so it was like I used it as fuel, their frustration or disappointment in me exposing myself while feeding my baby, as fuel. Okay, you don't like it, I'll do it more. So
yeah,
Mary,
and I think that's such a great point.
Oh, what?
Oh, sorry, the lag. Oh, I was going to say about the modesty thing.
Yeah, the modesty thing. What were you saying?
Oh, just, you know, I think that's a really important distinction to make, Shevonne. Like, you know, of course, we want to respect every single person being comfortable in what their comfort level is. So if someone has, you know, a religious viewpoint that says, you know, like you need to use a cover, and that's a true and authentic feeling that they hold, or, you know, it's just something that is important to them, you know, of course, that isn't something we would ever want to disrespect. But a lot of times, I know for me, it wasn't like my own sense of modesty that I was preserving. It was like I was afraid that people were going to be mean to me. And there's a big difference between those two things, in my opinion. You know, so my thought is, if we help dismantle that fear, then folks can feel comfortable making whatever choice is best for them, for whatever's authentic to them, not based on the judgment or opinion of other people.
Right.
And I apologize, I'm gonna have to duck off. My dog is about to have an accident right under the dining room table, apparently. I don't know what his deal is. So this is life from Zoom calls, right? It's like, you're home, you need to take me for a walk. I hear you, buddy. You wanna go for a walk? Come on. Okay. So I'm so sorry. I'll leave it up and you guys wrap up, but when I come back, if we're still going, then I'll rejoin us.
Yeah. Okay, so last time. I'll put her back on.
All right.
I love hearing your stories. It like you said, it's so nice to be able to hear other nursing stories. I was home a lot. I was lucky to be home while I was nursing, and then when we did go in public, I would just pump and then put it in the bottles, because with the twins, you know, I was like, I was not sure how to navigate nursing both of them, you know, and then I didn't want to stay in one place in public for too long while I nursed two babies. So for us, it was just easier to bottle feed. It's faster.
Yeah.
But I like that, you know, you were talking about how in the early 2000s, there wasn't too much, like everything is so pretty now for babies.
Yes.
There's all these kids, and I remember walking into Nordstrom and I was like, oh, there's a nursing station here. There's, you know, and it's so great that I guess society and laws are catching up to life, and
yeah, I think Nordstrom was one of the first places to have like a nursing lounge or nursing station in this area.
Yeah, I think
which I always loved that. And I actually, would seek out the Nordstrom Nursing Lounge. And I want to say it was around in the early 2000s.
like you bathrooms to nurse your kids, right? So
yeah. I refused to feed my kid in the bathroom. I'm not eating in the bathroom. I wouldn't expect anybody else to eat in the bathroom, and I wasn't going to feed my kid. I don't even like going into public bathrooms without a baby, let alone with a baby. So
sitting there, all of the things that you smell and see in the bathroom.
It wasn't happening. And so also like feeding in public was, not only was it from, is Elizabeth back?
Oh no, I don't.
Oh, not only was it it was empowering for me, but it was also, I wanted to encourage and help other folks feel empowered to also nurse in public or feed in public. Maybe if they saw me doing it, then they would feel like, oh, I don't have to go and hide in the bathroom stall or wherever. But yeah. What's that?
Oh, it's a beautiful statement, just a parent feeding their baby in public in the way that, yeah.
I mean, and it's natural, right? Like we eat, we drink, we poop, we pee, and like these are all things that our bodies are meant to do. And so feeding our babies is 100% natural, but I don't want it to take place in the same area that I use the bathroom, right? Like, yeah.
We don't do that. We don't expect that from adults. Why should we put that on our children? And yeah.
So I was hoping we could also talk about just like some tips for folks when they are in public and their baby is hungry and needs to be fed and they aren't using a bottle. Just tips on like how they can do that without, because culturally, like everyone has different ways of different levels of modesty and just different levels of comfort, right? And there's ways to nurse in public or feed in public that don't require your full breast to be exposed. So one of the things, like what I was talking about earlier, which was using a baby carrier, I found that soft-sided carriers, wraps, and slings all worked really well for me while nursing. It definitely was not something that I was doing with a brand new newborn, under 6-week-old baby. And really, I can't, if anyone is able to do that safely, more power to you. I couldn't find a way to do it safely. They're just so small and wiggly at that point, and they're just so precious. And my like I said earlier, my breasts were really large, and so I couldn't do it. But as my children got older, the sling, the wrap, I'd even wear my wrap as a shirt, so I'd have nothing on underneath except for my bra and my nursing bra, and then I would carry my baby in it. And if we went outside, I'd throw a jacket on over it, and because I had fall babies. Yeah, but I mean, it was really convenient, and it allowed me to do what I needed to do without having to, strip down. So, did you have any suggestions?
We used the blankets or like a scarf, like a big scarf. To cover, shield the baby, and my breasts were quite large too, so I think that's part of why I was also I also pumped before we'd go places, is because I was still a little, at that point I was still shy, and I'm like, oh, this is, the modesty thing. Now I could care less. Now I'm just
yeah.
Like,
And sometimes that comes with age too, right?
yeah.
I think being younger parents, we have so much pressure. Like, at least for me, I just felt so much pressure to do everything perfectly. And part of that was the pressure to not make other people feel uncomfortable. Like, that was being a perfect parent in my eyes, was like parenting without encroaching on other people's comfort. And now I realize,
Yeah. And now it's like, who are you? Who are you to us?
yeah. I love the idea of the shawl, especially like for a scarf. I think that there's some really beautiful scarves out there that would, and you can pin them too, which is nice. Because I always think, like, when I used a blanket, babies would, they tug the blanket down, and I spent more time trying to keep the blanket, covering than I did actually nursing my baby. So I love the idea of a scarf. Another thing that I did was the double, I hope it's not too loud. I have a neighbor driving by. My window's open. But I had the double shirt. So I'd go to like Costco and buy the 5-pack camisole shirts. And I'd wear that underneath my regular shirt. And then I could just lift up the top layer, pull down the bottom layer, and I'd still have coverage over my tum, which, postpartum tummy was something I did not want to expose to the world, regardless of how, free I was with the rest of my body. And, also button down shirts was something that I found to be really helpful to wear. Hey, you're back.
That was key. That's such a smart idea. Full shirts, the camisole.
Yeah.
Loose blouses.
For me, it was a lot cheaper than buying the nursing shirts. So the nursing shirts, back in the day, had that same concept where it was like 2 layers, and you pull up the layer, pull down the layer. And, they were really expensive. And I just didn't have it in my budget to spend $40 or $50 on a nursing shirt. So if I could get a 5-pack of undershirts, or camisoles and they were long, which I loved because then it gave extra postpartum coverage. But if I could get that for $15, and that's 5 shirts versus the one for $40 or $50, that was it was more feasible for me at the time. And I feel like it was much more practical. So yeah, because you could wear them under anything versus like just wearing that same shirt over and over again,
Yes. Yeah. The mix and matching. I still kind of do it, like layer 2 shirts, just because I don't know, I got used to it. Kind of smoothed things out a little bit too.
Definitely prevents a draft,
Yes.
So Elizabeth, we were just talking about like just different ways and tips to, to be comfortable with nursing in public. So we talked about baby carriers. We talked about the different styles of shirts. Mary was saying that she wore a shawl or a scarf, which I think is a really beautiful idea. Because you can pin it, right? Like you don't have to struggle with the blankets. Do you have any other tips that you have or you used about?
I think that really covers a lot of it. I also had like an infinity scarf that just sometimes felt a little bit, like it's something that was just sitting across the top of me, so that I didn't have to worry about adding something else. Because again, I personally didn't love having this like giant F cup breast hanging out there. But also I would if I, needed to. But yeah, so I did a lot of double shirts. Yes, yeah. And I wear a lot of cardigans anyways. So like that's just kind of one of the things I do. So a lot of times, like if I was nursing in the carrier, even if I didn't have a second shirt, it was kind of nice because you could have the baby in the carrier and you can like either picture up or down or whatever, and then you got your cardigan still kind of on the side coverage and the tummy coverage, because like you said, I got to a point where I was much more comfortable showing my breast than my midsection. I'm not 16 anymore. I mean, and there's, you know, more power to you folks who feel comfortable showing up their midsection, but I'm not that person anymore.
Yeah, I'm with you. 3 babies. I'm like, you know, you get the collarbone. That's
I don't know if
I'll show my collarbone, and that's about it.
I have a very collarbone. All right. Well, friends, it's 11 o'clock. Well, and still, you know, for folks who join now or later, I think it'd be lovely to get any comments and encouragement, because I think the one thing that was really universal that we heard is that sharing stories, it's so powerful and it's so encouraging to hear other people's stories about, you know, just being out and about and doing it, pictures. So anyone who feels like sharing any stories or pictures or encouragement to other folks, I think would be really fantastic.
Yes, please share. All right. Well, it's
cool.
Wonderful seeing all of you.
Yeah, and we'll be back in 2 weeks. So we're going to be doing these lives every other week, because life, as it turns out, is going to be something on a weekly basis. So we're going to be going every 2 weeks. We will be presenting new topics, and we also love to hear ideas and topics from folks. So if there's something you're like, man, I would really like you to talk about this, please just know. We'd love to talk about it. Cool.
All right. See you guys next time.
Bye.